Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, today we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 8. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of verbs. All right. So our chapter is verbs. Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 8. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of verbs is irregular past tense, simple past, present, and future tense, and to form progressive and verb tenses. So there is quite a few lessons on verbs. So today we'll do a few lessons on verbs. And the next time when we meet again, I think it is probably on Tuesday. And then we will continue again with verbs, right? Because there's a lot of lessons under our chapter of verbs. All right. So most verbs, right, are regular, right? So we're going to find out what regular verbs are and as well. Okay, we're going to go briefly over what regular verbs are. But most of the verbs are regular in the past tense. And verbs that are regular in the past tense, it means that they are basically following a rule, like where you either must add ed or you just add d to get the past tense form of the verb, right? And examples of that, of these regular verbs are, for example, where you say walked, right? Talked. Where we only add a D, then it's, for example, like danced. You see, if a verb ends with an E, then we only add a D, right? Laughed. That is also regular past tense. So it's walk, talk, dance, laughed, um, watch, right? Those are just a few examples of regular past tense, right? And regular past tense, once again, it means that you follow a specific rule, right? You follow rules where you say that, okay, this is my past tense. It's like I walk to the shop. Yesterday or in the past, I walked to the shop. I talk to my friend. Earlier on, I talked to my friend, right? Um, we dance at the concert. Last week we danced at the concert, right? I watched the latest Medea movie. In the past, I watched Medea movies, right? So that is regular past tense. And regular past tense, they follow the rules like where you add ed or you add a d. Remember, you add a d to a word that ends with an e. For example, dance, right? Ends with an e. So if I were to um, write this in the past tense, it will be danced, right? But the other words that do not end with an E, we add an ED to show the past tense form of that verb. All right, so that is the past tense form, the regular past tense form. But now we'll specifically be talking about irregular past tense, right? And some irregular past tense, right? They do not follow any rules. They do not follow any rules where we say you must add ed or you must add a d, right? So with irregular past tense, since you don't follow any rules, you're just gonna have to know, you're gonna have to remember what the past tense is, right? You're gonna have to try and remember the past tense form of that verb. And if we look at the few examples of irregular past tense, right? Then you can say that you can say I do my homework now, but yesterday I did my homework. So Louis did his homework. So do changes to did, right? It's the same with speak. Speak is our present tense verb, right? But in the past, I spoke, right? So do you see how the word changes? It's the same with I write a note now. But in the past, I wrote a note, right? I think about the weekend. I thought about the weekend. So these words are changing, right? And we cannot say, okay, so look here, it's going to change into, whatever, like you need to do this and then the other, your word is going to change and you just move certain things around. When it comes to irregular past tense, we cannot tell you that you need to change this because take the I away, put the O there, because it changes. Because look at how do changes to did, speak changes to spoke, write changes to wrote, think changes to thought, right? So that is examples of irregular verbs in the past tense, right? It does not have any rules that it follows where it says either add D or add ED, right? Because the wording changes, you're going to have to remember the past tense form of the verb, right? We also said that we're going to go over simple past tense, present tense, and future tense, right? So, future tense, right? Because we already spoke about past tense. Future tense verbs, it tells you about something that is going to happen because it is in the future, right? So, future tense, it tells you about something that is going to happen Remember, the future can be tomorrow, it can be tonight, it can be next week, next month, it can even be next year, right? But it shows that it is going to happen. And when we talk about future tense, right, then we just add will. So to future tense, we just add will to form our future tense verbs. And if we look at an example, right, and then it says the boys will finish later. They're not finishing now in the present, but they will finish later. Later can be in an hour's time, it can be tonight, but later. Tanya will speak at the conference. So she will speak at the conference. It can be tonight, it can be tomorrow, it can be next week, it can be next year, but she's going to speak at the conference, right? It's going to still happen, right? So that is future tense. And then we also have present tense, right? And the present tense verbs, it tells you about something that is true or that is happening now. That is present tense, right? It is true or it is happening now. My surname. Miss Nadine is, we can say Miss Nadine teaches or tutors verbs today, right? It's happening now. And our present tense form of the verb, it must agree with the subject in number. And that is where singular subjects comes in and plural subject comes in, right? So with singular subjects in the present tense, so singular subjects, it goes with a singular verb, right? And in order for us to form most of our singular present tense verbs, we need to add an is. So if we refer to one person that's going to do something, our verb is going to end in an is. So, for example, Miss Nadine so we don't just say Miss Nadine teach, right? We say Miss Nadine teaches verbs tonight or now, right? So which means that Miss Nadine is one person. It's one person, it's singular, right? So our singular verb, our singular subject, right, it needs to agree with our singular verb. And remember, we said our singular verb either ends in s, or in this case, it ends in es. If one person is doing something, let's say Jack, right, is doing something, then we can say Jack sings. It's one person. Jack is singular. Jack sings in the choir, right? But now, remember we said that a singular subject, it agrees with a singular verb and it ends with an s or es. But then again, a plural subject, right? It has no ending and it basically also needs to agree with a plural verb, right? So, for example, if we were to say, like we said, Jack sings in the choir because we refer to one person doing something and our verb ends with an S or ES. But if we say the boys, which refers to more than one person, then we say the boys sing in the choir. Right? So we don't say the boys sings in the choir, we say the boys sing in the choir. Right? The learners or the students listen because it's more than one. So the verb over there does not end with an S. All right. And once again, if we go over our singular subjects, right? Also, when it comes to singular subjects in the present tense, right? We see the singular subjects goes with the singular verb. And in order for us to form most singular present tense verb, we add an S. And for verbs that ends with sh, s, x, and z, we can just add an es, right? So we say teach, teaches, right? And for verbs that ends with a consonant y, we change the y to an ies. And if we look at it a few examples, we already made a few examples of singular pronouns, of singular subjects. But if we look at more examples, we can say snow falls, snow falls. So snow, right, falls outside my window. Dylan, one boy, washes, right, the dishes. Susan, one girl or one lady, carries the boxes to her room, right? And these are singular subjects that refers to singular verbs that either ends with s or ies. Then we have plural subjects. Plural subjects I and you go with plural verbs, which have no ending, right? For example, ice cubes. Ice cubes refers to more than one ice cube, right? You see, we don't say ice cubes floats. We only say ice cubes float in the water. No S, no ES at the end of a verb. You look nice today. Remember we said I and you falls under the plural subject. So you look nice today. And two verbs, right, are irregular in the present tense, to be and to have. You must remember these forms. The soup is too hard and Aaron has long hair. All right. So far that is our present tense verbs that tells us something that is true and happening now. And remember our present tense verbs, right? It must agree with the subjects in number, which means that singular subjects refers, let's say, agrees with singular verbs that ends with s or es, and plural subjects needs to agree with plural verbs that ends. It's just ongoing, right? It does not end with an s and it does not end with an es. Future tense verbs, they tell us about something that is going to happen, and we add basically, when it comes to future tense verbs, we add will to our future tense to form the verb tense, right? And remember, when it comes to regular verbs, we add ed or we add d, right, to show the regular form of the verb. But when it comes to irregular verbs, we do not end ed, we do not add a d, right, to our verbs, right, which means that you're going to have to know what the word is. You're going to have to know what the verb is. You're going to have to know how the verb changes from a present tense to a past tense, right? Because there's no rules that the irregular past tense verbs follow, right? So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we're going to our first lesson. As you can see, we just now went over irregular past tense, simple past, present, and future tense, and we went over to form progressive verb tenses. So we're just going to do one or two activities and then we're going to the test, right? So this is irregular past tense. So we are going to go over two activities and then we're going to the test. It says complete the sentence with the verb in the past tense. So after the American colonies declared their independence, 55 men undertake. We're going to have to change this word undertake. They undertake the difficult task of writing our country's constitution. Right? So if we look at that word undertake, we need to change undertake to its correct past tense verb. Right? So we need to write that one in the past tense. And if we write that in the past tense, we can say after the American colonies declared independence, 55 men undertook the difficult task of writing our country's constitution. Right? So which means that we change the word undertake to undertook, right? Because undertake is irregular, right? And from the past tense, we formed undertook. When the actor when the actor fling his scripts at the floodlights and stomped off the stage, he was merely staying in character, right? So we're going to change this word fling to its past tense, to the past tense form, right? So if we rewrite that sentence, right, by adding the correct verb in the past tense, then we can say when the actor flung his script at the floodlights and stomped off the stage, he was merely staying in character. So fling is an irregular verb and it changed to flung. Right? All right, last one. It took determination and hard work, but Cole finally repaid his debt and started saving money for a house. Right? So we can say if we change this word repay, if we complete that sentence with a verb in the past tense, we change it to the past tense. So repay, remember, is an irregular verb. So it says, if we change that whole sentence, or let's say we basically change that word by rewriting the sentence, then we can say, it took determination and hard work, but Cole repaid his debt and started saving money for a house. And like we say, repay is an irregular verb, right? And if we write that verb in the past tense, then it is repaid, right? Repaid. All right, so now we're going on to our test, right? Which is irregular past tense. We're going to complete the sentence with the verb in past tense. It took determination and hard work, but Cole finally repay his and started saving for a house. So, repay. Do we say that Cole finally repaid, which is option one? To repay, option two, or repaids, which is option three. What is the correct answer? Option one, two, or three? So Cole finally repaid, option one, to repay, option two, or repaids, option three. All right, and if we choose the correct one, we can say Cole finally repaid his debt and started saving for a house. Who bring this delicious coconut cake? Do we say brought, to bring, or brought? Bring is going to change to, is it brought, to bring, or brought? And if we change that word, right, if we change that verb to the past tense, then we can say who brought this delicious coconut cake. So the word bring changes to brought, right? Remember, these are irregular past tense, right? After the American colonies declared their independence, the 55 men undertake the difficult task of writing our country's constitution. So, undertake, we need to change this irregular past tense verb. This irregular verb to a past tense verb. And we can say that after the American colonies declared their independence, 55 men undertook the difficult task of writing our country's constitution. So, undertook is our irregular past tense verb. One more. When the actor fling his script at the floodlights and stomped off the stage, he was merely staying in character, right? So fling, we need to change um this irregular verb fling to the irregular past tense verb. So do we say he flung, to fling, or flungs his script at floodlights and stomped off the stage? He was merely staying in character. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, we can say when the character flung his script at the floodlights and stomped off the stage, he was merely staying in character. All right, and so far, based on the activities as well as the tests that we've been doing, can you see how the word changes, right? We cannot say that there's one specific rule that you need to follow because all of the words has changed. The wording has changed depending on the specific verb that we are, or the specific irregular verb that we basically had to change to an irregular past tense verb. Right? All right, so now we're going to simple past, present, and future tense. And we're going to have to complete the sentence with the future tense form of the verb. Remember, we said that with the future tense, we add will to our future tense to show that something is going to happen, right? Something is going to happen. That is a future tense, and we add will. When it comes to the present tense, right, we said present tense, it either shows that something is true or something is happening now. And with our present tense, we're going to have to remember our present tense in number. meaning that we either have a singular present tense or we have a past present tense, right? Sorry, a singular or a plural present tense, right? Our singular subject of the present tense need to agree with a singular verb, right? And a singular verb either ends in s or es. And then our plural subject, right, of the present tense needs to agree with the plural verb, which means that it is ongoing and it does not end with an s or it does not end with an es, right? But for now, future tense, we add will to show that something is going to still happen. All right, so we need to complete the sentence with the future tense form of the verb. It says, next time Halley's comet approach Earth is in 2061. So we need to comet approach. So if we were to change or to write the sentence in the future tense, right? We can then say next time Halley's comet will approach Earth is in 2061, right? And we see that future tense, it shows that something is going to happen. And we need to always add will to form the future tense of all of our verbs, right? So will approach, right? We need to complete the sentence in the future tense form of the verb. With the future tense form of the verb. Researchers estimate that up to 90% of the world's language become extinct by the end of the 21st century. All right, and if we were to complete the sentence with the future tense form of the verb, and remember we said that we need to add will to our verb, then we can say that researchers estimate that up to 90% of the world's languages will become extinct by the end of the 21st century. Remember, nowadays we are just speaking English, right? We are just speaking English, and English has become a universal language to an extent that some to most of our languages are not even being spoken, whether it is at home as a home language or even in our schools, right? Workplaces, because of the different people from literally all countries, continents, all over the world that is nowadays in the different countries. English has become the universal language, right? One example is I live in Africa. I live in South Africa, and we have 12 official languages in South Africa. And English has become such a universal language that most of us can either only speak two languages or three languages at most, right? Your home language, which is maybe like mine is Afrikaans, as well as English, which is our second language, and any other African language. All right, so this is true that some of the world's languages will probably become extinct by the 21st century. All right, now we're going to begin our test, right? Where we're going to complete the sentence with the future tense of the future tense form of the verb, right? All right, next week, attend. Tammy, attend a conference on small business management in Greenville. So, attend, do we say will attend, will attends, or attended? And if we choose the correct future tense form of the verb, we will say next week Tammy will attend a conference on small business management in Greenville. Right? So will attend. All right. Remember, we add will to our verb. Complete the sentence with the present tense form of the verb. Did you know that water molecule consists of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? So, did you know, if we write that in the future tense, then we can say, did you know that water molecules will consist of two? Oh, sorry, it's in the present tense. So we need to write this in the present tense. So, did you know that water molecules, do we say consists, consisted, or will consist? So we can say it consists of two hydrogen atoms and oxygen atom. That is now the present tense form, right? All right, so now we're going on to completing the sentence with the future tense form of the verb. Future tense form of the verb. Researchers estimated that 90% of the world's languages become extinct by the end of the 21st century. And if we were to write that sentence in the future tense, we will say that researchers estimated up to 90% of the world's languages will become extinct by the end of the 21st century. Right? All right. So now we're going on to forming the progressive verb tenses, right? And remember, we said that with the progressive verb tense, it describes ongoing action. Did we say, yeah, form the progressive verb tense? All right, so we didn't go over this one. So progressive verb tenses, right? It shows ongoing action. Shows ongoing action, right? It tells about something that is, was, or will happen. Remember, once again, if it shows is, was, or will, then it means that it shows either the present progressive tense, past progressive tense, or future progressive tense. Because is shows us the present, was shows us the past, and will be shows us the present tense. And to form the progressive verb tenses, we can use the form of the helping verb to be with the main verb that ends in ing. So which means that our main verb will end in ing. For example, walking, talking, dancing, laughing, visiting, playing, right? Because it ends with an ing, right? And when we talk about the present progressive tense, right, it tells about something that is happening right now. And we use the present tense verb tense, which is is, am, are. She is playing. Remember, if we refer to singular person, we say he or she is. I am. We can either say you are or they are, right? Then we have the past progressive tense, right? Which tells us about something that is happening in the past, that was happening in the past. And it uses the past tense form of the helping verb, which is either was or were. If we refer to a singular person in the past tense, we say that person was doing something. And if we refer to a plural people, right? If we refer to it as plural, then we say they were, right? They were. John and Sam were playing football. And then we have the future progressive tense, which tells us about something that will be happening in the future. And remember, we said that if something will be happening in the future, then it means that we use the future tense form of the helping verb where we add will. But in this case, since it is the future progressive tense, we say will be. So whether it is singular or plural, we can say that person will be. Karen will be visiting next week. They will be visiting next week, right? All right. So now let's quickly go on to our test and let's do at least like two or three of our. It says complete the sentence with the present progressive form of the verb. Present, right? The lawyers amend the contract. So lawyers refer to more than one. They amend the contract to show the construction of the opera house must be completed by April 1. So do we say the lawyers are amending or do we say the lawyers amend, right? So since we are showing ongoing action, right, we are going to say the lawyers are amending, right? My siblings and I, which refers to more than one person, it is plural form. Memorize the words to our grandmother's favorite poem, My Heart Leaps Up by William Wordsmith. So, My Heart Leaps Up by William Wordsmith. So, we can recite it. During her 80th birthday celebration. And if we choose or we complete that sentence with the present form of the verb, right? Then we can say, my siblings and I are memorizing it. So we are memorizing the words of our grandma's favorite poem. We now need to complete the sentence with the past progressive form of the verb. The past progressive form of the verb. By the end of the film, which was a modern day adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, half the audience sob, right? Sob. But in the past, right, we can say half the audience was sobbing, right? Sobbing is another word for crying, right? And the last one, we can say trees die. This is now the past progressive. Trees die, and the city's arborist suspected that the flat-headed apple tree borer, a notorious pest in the area, was to blame. So do we say trees were dying, trees die, or trees was dying? So remember, if we're referring to more than one, right? Like there's trees is plural, then we say were dying. If we only had to say the tree, then we say was dying. So, but more than one tree, which is trees, we say were dying, right? All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on verbs, right? And remember, we said with irregular past tense verbs, you do not follow any rules. We cannot say add a D or ed to the verb in order to change the verb from a present tense to a past tense. We also went over simple past, present, and future tense, right? And remember, with past, present, and future tense, we have singular um, verbs as well as singular subjects as well as plural subjects, right? And then also to form the present progressive or the past progressive or the future progressive verb tenses, we have to add the helping verb, and our progressive verb tense ends in ing. All right, so in our next lesson, we will continue to do the rest of the verbs, right? Or the lessons on verbs. But for now, have a good evening further, right? I think we'll see each other next week. So have a good evening further and a good weekend further, seeing that we won't be able to see each other tomorrow. All right, goodbye.